The Joy of Creation. The Joy of Creation is a series of Five Nights at Freddy's fan games created by Nikson, which is associated with Scott Cawthon's Fazbear Fanverse initiative. There are a total of 4 games, with an upcoming 5th game in this series. The original Joy of Creation, the Joy of Creation Reborn, the Joy of Creation Halloween Edition, and the one the most are familiar with, the Joy of Creation Story Mode. These games are most famous for starring the Ignited animatronics. These games are also known for being the ones to popularize the concept of free roam FNaF games. These games have gotten so much recognition that, like I said earlier, got put into the Fazbear Fanverse initiative, and as well, there being official merchandise of the game being made. Welcome to my Five Nights at Freddy's Fangame review on the Joy of Creation series. Known online as Nikson is, as you guys know, the developer of the Joy of Creation series. He was born on February 20th, 2001, and currently resides in the Netherlands. Nikson has created many projects before the Joy of Creation. He has a YouTube channel where he once made FNaF animations on. He's also made other fan games before the Joy of Creation, the biggest example being the Those Nights at Rachel's duology. Those Nights at Rachel's and Those Nights at Rachel's 2 Reloaded. The former being the usual survive 5 nights till 6 AM against animatronics deal, but you semi-move around, and the latter being an April Fool's prank, which was a shooter game. There's also Those Nights at Fredbear's, which was cancelled allegedly because of corruption of the files. However, in 2018, it would be shown at the end of the Joy of Creation anniversary video that there was going to be a revival of this game. Except it would be revealed by Nikson that it got cancelled yet again, and he went to show behind the scenes shots on FNaF's Discord server. This game would basically have the player run from Fredbear and Spring Bonnie in a free roam sense. Some other cancelled fan games by Nikson include an original Those Nights at Rachel's 2 that wouldn't be a joke game, an entry for the 2019 Fangames at Freddy's Game Jam called FNaF Cleaning Simulator, and a 3D and free roam remake of FNaF 1 called Unreal Shift at Freddy's. Nikson has also gone far enough in his career to be helping other indie game development teams with their games. Basically, Nikson is a programmer for Glowstick Entertainment, the development team behind Dark Deception. But otherwise, Nikson is truly someone interesting in the Five Nights at Freddy's community, and without him and his past work, we wouldn't have one of the most recognizable and successful FNaF fan games of all time. Where it all began. Now, this original version of the Joy of Creation was first released on November 30th, 2015. This goes sort of like an unfinished beta, and the game itself is just survival mode, which is basically an endless mode, meaning no ending. It keeps going until you die. And this goes without saying, but this is by far the weakest game in the whole series. However, that's not a surprise, because the main reason is the fact that it's all so dated, from the visuals to the gameplay. I'm sorry, but this all looks dull as hell. I'm not impressed. The visuals get a massive glow up in the games afterwards and it starts to look more appealing. I get it's supposed to be all dark and terrifying, but it just seems like too much of it, if it makes sense. It's hard to describe without saying the word dated again. It's just dated. Albeit it isn't terrible, but it's just that Nikson can do better, and we've seen that clearly, so therefore, it just makes this game stick out like a sore thumb. However, the visuals are not my biggest issue with the game. Not at all. It's the gameplay. Why? Well, all it is basically if an ignited animatronic is attacking, you must flash your light. All you gotta do is basically just turn right and flash. That's all you have to do. Also, by the way, you can't even turn left, which is completely odd. I don't get it. And with this very formulaic gameplay, it's boring. It's not engaging. This game just honestly sucks. I'm sorry. However, it was some learning steps for Nikson when it came to creating FNaF fan games and just game development in general. He was new at making a craft, and it shows very clearly with this one, so I can't be completely mad or upset at it. There's not even that much to get into with this one. It's literally just an unfinished endless mode beta that has the ignited animatronics we'll eventually get to know and love. I'm hoping that the remake for this, for the Ignited collection, will be good because I really want to see what a fun and engaging and overall decent version of this game could be because it admittedly does have potential. The setting, while the visuals are dull, it's there. It has promise. And we know how amazing the Ignited crew are when it comes to being terrifying, so there's also that. I'm sorry, Chief, but this ain't it. Now, the joy of creation Reborn. Back when it was initially released on May 15th, 2016, it was met with immediate praise for how much it strayed away from the FNaF formula. Back in those days, FNaF games and Fangames were 90% of the time you just sat in one spot or you moved via point and click. However, what this game did was basically take FNaF in the free roam approach that was common in many horror games. While this concept for FNaF is by far not original anymore, especially since the latest and arguably biggest FNaF game in the franchise since the 2015 games, Security Breach, was entirely free roam prominent. This Fangame basically popularized this type of gameplay in the FNaF circle, and ever since then, it's been seen as this completely terrifying experience that could apparently give the original FNaF games of the time a run for their money. Okay, look. This may be an unpopular opinion or hot take or whatever you want to call it, but while this game isn't bad, nowhere close actually, I just can't call it good either. I think the joy of creation Reborn is just okay. To start off, yes, when you play this game either for the first time completely or the first time in a long while, it is legitimately terrifying. The atmosphere of the areas you're in gives such a creepy feel to it all, such as the dark brighting, and for Ignited Freddy's level, the sound effects coming from outside. Speaking of sound effects, the sounds coming from the Ignited animatronics moving literally being so freaky to hear, especially if they're close. The amount of time you're given to complete the task literally putting pressure on you, which makes it much more thrilling. Yes, it's an experience upon initial playthrough, or else why was this successful after all? However, the more you play it, the more the creepy factor wears off for me. It just sort of becomes boring afterwards. Of course, there's still some kind of challenge based off of the level you're playing, for example, Ignited Bonnie being fast, as well as Ignited Foxy having a flash in the eyes mechanic key to FNaF 2, same with Ignited Chica actually. But while unique, they aren't enough to fully carry the levels and get them to a point where they're engaging. Yes, when playing the original Five Nights games, the creepy factor will most definitely wear off the more you play, but you can always rely on the gameplay being engaging enough to still be entertaining to keep you playing till the end. I just feel like this game misses the mark on that. However, if I had to pick a level in this game that I would actually call really good from the beginning till the end, that would be Ignited Chica's level. Despite being slender the 8 pages, but Ignited Chica taking the place of Slender, and there being 10 pages in total to collect instead of 8, I still think that this was both very tense in a terrifying way, as well as engaging to play. And I believe that's because out of all the 4 of the levels, this one feels the most structured. Basically, you're given a reasonable amount of time to find all the pages, and while the pages are always set in the same spots, it's not that easy. That's because the setting does a great job at throwing you off your tracks. It makes you wonder if you've been at a certain point, and unless you look up a map of the level to help, you don't know where to go. All the while, you must make sure Ignited Chica doesn't get you. It's a good challenge that involves trial and error and memorization skills, and for that, I very much enjoyed this level and consider it the best one in this game. If I had to personally rank each level in this game from best to worst, it'd go Chica, Foxy, Bonnie, Freddy. Chica's being great, Foxy's being pretty decent, Bonnie's being kinda mid, and Freddy's being very dull and boring after initial fears are out of your system. As well, after completing each level in this game, there's an extras, well, area, because in this one, you can actually walk in it. In this area, all 4 Ignited animatronics are sealed in glass see-through containers up for display to the player, and as well, there's a secret in here. When you turn off the light switch and find the door in the room with the flashlight, you'll be greeted to a hellish-looking hallway that you must make to the end to. You must do this 2 times. Throughout it, you must avoid running into an animatronic known as Phantasmagoric Ignited Freddy, which is a black and white phantom hallucination of Ignited Freddy. When you make it to a certain point, you'll be greeted to a hallway full of Phantasmagoric Ignited Foxies, which is basically the same as before except Foxy. And then after you make it to the end of that, he jump scares you and the game crashes. This is certainly a very interesting secret, that's for sure. There seems to be zero confirmation of what the meaning of this whole extra secret is, but some people online I've seen speculated that this is possibly part of the process of how Michael brought the Ignited animatronics into the human world in story mode, but I heavily doubt it. Before I quickly touch on my critiques, here's another positive I have for this game. I extremely adore the jump scares in this game. The animations and jump scare sound effects are absolutely top notch, especially Ignited Bonnie's jump scare. Legitimately one of the best jump scares in any FNaF related media I've ever seen. In terms of some final critiques for this game, I'm not a fan of the environment designs for Ignited Freddy and Ignited Bonnie's levels. They just look so bare bones and empty, and I feel like there could have been more done to look less bland. I don't know, dude. Otherwise, even with my critiques on this game, it's very important to remember that this game was revolutionary at the time and paved the way for a lot of FNaF Fangames and even official games just like it. This game was something of note, and for that, I can't call this game bad at all. It's important. Regardless of its age and when I think of it, the Joy of Creation Reborn is still a FNaF Fangame a lot of people remember, and it's by far the second most popular Joy of Creation game right behind Story Mode. The Halloween edition, releasing on Halloween of 2016. Okay, so this is probably going to be a huge unpopular opinion, but I think the Joy of Creation Halloween edition is better than Reborn. I'm sorry, but what in my opinion makes this game superior is because of how there's actually gameplay this time round. Sure, Reborn had gameplay, and for Chica's case, it was engaging gameplay, but I feel like the gameplay is more well realized in this one. Mostly because there's much more to do, and more unique ways of survival against the enemy, which in this game, it's Ignited Springtrap. Sure, you can outrun him, but there's also the audio mechanic from FNaF 3 which actually works, and its utilization in the game is pretty well done. The only flaw with this I see is if you're not familiar with the FNaF 3 map, but if you are, it shouldn't be terrible. Regardless, as the suspicious phone caller in this game describes it, it's a cat and mouse game, and I adore it. I also do like how the locations of the hammer and the lighter are randomized with each attempt, so therefore it prevents the game from being boring and uninteresting. It spices it up on the player, and I respect that. Reborn does it as well with every level except for Chica's, and it worked there as well. And also, speaking of more gameplay than Reborn, there's more tasks than just collecting stuff. You're actually using the hammer for breaking pipes around the building, and it makes the game feel more real and immersive. Speaking of immersive, let me just say, I love the graphics in this one. Nikson kept improving with the graphics for each game, and this is where it went from just good in Reborn to absolutely great, and then eventually amazing in Story Mode. Fazbear Fright is so well realized here. There's never an area that looks dull as hell to look at. The environments are pleasing and fit the atmosphere of the game perfectly. It has detail everywhere you look, and it's spectacular. It's not even just visuals either that help make this an experience. The sound design in this game is also great. I love the sounds of Ignited Springtrap moving around. It's so creepy and terrifying, just like when you're first initially playing Reborn. And unlike Reborn, where there's nothing in the game that makes it worth playing after the initial scare is gone, this game has good enough gameplay that you'll be engaged once you're no longer scared of it. Speaking of Ignited Springtrap, I really do like his design a lot. I see his design as a better burn trap design. I feel like the burns and textures are more believable in capturing the feeling that he's burnt, and additionally, they help make him look like an actual monster. He's got very creepy details to him that make him look very creepy looking up close. Ooh. Additionally, I think the voice acting is pretty solid in this game. Both the protagonist and phone caller are really believable for their roles. The phone caller really does a great job at selling this feeling that he's an untrusted, suspicious individual, and the protagonist feels like a worried and panicked man that is questioning what's going on currently. The voice actors for each of them pulled it off. This game all around is just pretty solid. There's only one real critique I have with this game, and that's that the ending just has nothing much to it, and that's due to the lack of information. And it's not like it's trying to be ambiguous. No, it's trying to propose some actual story when this game didn't seem to particularly have any to begin with. Especially since this game is not canon to the other Joy of Creation games. It just felt odd and felt like for this game to stand on its own, it needed some ending to get people talking. Otherwise, this game is underrated as hell, and I'm sad that this one is forgotten by people. Especially more since it's not being included for the Ignited collection. Oh well, I don't even see how a big remake could even work for this game since the game itself is fundamentally fine and is not in a dire need for serious changes. However, though Story Mode, spoiler alert, is like a masterpiece in the FNaF Fangame industry, and that's getting a remake with this collection, so who knows? All I gotta say left for this one is that this is my second favorite game to come from the Joy of Creation series, and I think that this one is a little underappreciated. However, now, we get to quite possibly the most popular game by far in the series, and what I consider the best one. This is the big one. This is the one game in the series everyone remembers. The Joy of Creation Story Mode. Released on July 18th, 2017, it was met to immediate positive reception in many Let's Plays by various creators, both big and small. Nearly every aspect of this game is incredible, from the visuals to the gameplay to the story. All of it is top tier. So in this game, there are a total of 5 levels which are called memories. The bedroom, the living room, the office, the basement, and the attic. In each of these memories, you must survive against either the Ignited crew, the Fallen Endos, or Creation. Each of these memories have you playing as a member of the Scott Cawthon family, or in the basement's case, Michael. All of this taking place in the real world during the 2nd year anniversary of Five Nights at Freddy's, and there's a whole plot underneath. I'm basically going to go over one level at a time, starting with the bedroom. Each memory begins with 2 cutscenes before the gameplay of the memory begins. The first cutscene of the bedroom basically centers around Scott and his wife finding a man hiding in their basement near sundown, the name of this man being Michael. They allow him to stay in their home, for some reason, and then a much older Nick, Scott's fictional son in this game, recounts what happened after Michael was led into their home. Then he gets to the gameplay of the bedroom, where Michael is detailing to Nick exactly what is going on and how to survive against the Ignited gang. Now this bedroom memory, while the weakest in the game, it's still pretty damn good. I'd say it's the weakest because the other memories have much more thought put into them that makes them so much more greater than the bedroom, which is not a bad thing at all. To start off, I absolutely adore the rainy atmosphere. It feels extremely real, mostly because of the sound effects present. The lack of music or proper ambience also sells it too. Speaking of sound effects, the Ignited animatronics' terrifying movements from Reborn are back in this game, and they're just as terrifying as ever. They sound like they're coming for you, and it's a very tense feeling they give. There's also random sound effects that play throughout the night too, which makes it so much more creepy. Now I'm going to touch on the gameplay. The gameplay in this memory is pretty good. The other memories are most definitely more well utilized and creatively designed when it comes to a gameplay perspective, but I feel like this memory's gameplay is engaging and can feel tense. You have animatronics to keep track of, which do not have set patterns of how long it takes for them to come in, which just like the original FNaF games puts you on your toes. However, speaking of patterns, some characters like Bonnie have a certain rhythm you can follow with their movement, which for Bonnie, it'd be 3 movement sound effects till the attack. Due to this, you can strategize a little bit, and I like that. There's also one aspect about this memory that makes it an experience, and that is the insanity meter. You must keep that maintained. And part of the suspense when playing this game is thinking about whether or not the insanity is going to run out or not. You start to panic. And then, on a lot of cases, the insanity is close to running out, and you get to see how that looks. Your surroundings become grayscale, the audio starts fading out, including your vision. This makes the player panic even more, and it makes the game much more intense in its final minutes. Even if you know exactly the mechanics of this memory, you can feel a bit riled up by what's going on. And then, if you do survive and win, the sigh of relief of what you just went through occurs. Fantastic. If there's one criticism I see online about this memory, as well as basically every other memory in this game, it's that since each memory is different, you learning the mechanics of each memory ends up being pointless in the end. While there is some merit to that, I believe that as long as I'm getting the general experience of the game from the level, then it still succeeds as a well-crafted level of a video game. And the bedroom memory does not fail at that. The chaos and intensity, the strategizing, even the atmosphere and vibes that you will experience in later memories of the game are basically all present here, just not as apparent. And for that, I consider the bedroom memory to still be pretty damn good. The living room. This is when the game gets truly stellar. In this memory, we're playing as Scott's wife who's confused about what's going on. She has Michael as a guide for the phone at first until Michael mentions Scott by name, which Scott's wife points out how Scott didn't say his name when they found Michael in the basement during the beginning cutscene of the game.
I'm gonna help Scott get out of here myself.
Wait a second. How do you know my husband's name? I was there when he found you, Michael. He never said his name. How do you know?
Uh-oh, plot twist. Anywho, the main gameplay during this memory, I've always praised for being unique and original conceptually and being very intense and engaging in execution. I still stand by all of that. When I call this gameplay intense, I'm not kidding. There's also destined to be certain moments in the memory that will amp you up and make you believe that 2 animatronics are going to head in at the same time. It's scary. It puts you on the edge of your seat and makes you try to be sure about what you're doing. And that's not to mention 5 a.m. At 5 a.m., the whole area turns hellish red. The frame pictures on the wall change to pictures of eyes, the ambience becomes all eerie and disturbing, and most importantly, the animatronics get faster. Yes, 5 a.m. is a difficulty increase. I love this final hour of the game. It basically amps up the intensity of the memory from 10 to fucking 100. This is the time when you seriously need to start worrying about what times the animatronics are gonna come in, when to pause them, etc. And that is the living room. The next memory is the office. We start off with a cutscene showing Scott looking for his fictional son Nick because of him hearing his scream, and he encounters Ignited Freddy.
God. Freddy? Freddy? What are you doing? What are you afraid to do?
Then, Ignited Freddy gives chase.
Oh God! What is this? Help! Somebody help!
Eventually, Scott loses him, and he enters the office and finds a flashlight and a note from his family detailing how to survive against the animatronics via the flashlight. Before I talk about the gameplay of the office, let me just say, I adore the chase cutscene, and I consider it the best cutscene from this game, from an action standpoint and a character standpoint. In terms of the action standpoint, that's obvious. The chase between Scott and Ignited Freddy is so fucking crazy and intense, helped by the background music, Ignited Freddy's running sound effects, and the performance by Scott's voice actor in this game. As well, not to mention, before the chase even starts, the scene with Scott encountering Ignited Freddy is so surreal in a twisted way that I can't describe it. In context of what's going on currently in this cutscene, Scott has yet to encounter the Igniteds, and since this takes place in the real world where Scott still is the developer of Five Nights at Freddy's, this is basically him meeting his creation, but in a really messed up way. And I'm not gonna lie, that is absolutely genius. And in terms of a character standpoint, Scott's characterization in this cutscene is very good. He cares about his son since he heard him scream, and when he's reading the office note and holds the flashlight, it's sort of like a heroic defender type of moment to me, and I actually like that a lot. Anywho, we get into the office gameplay, and just like the living room, this is another amazing memory from a gameplay perspective. What I love about this memory is that it's very reminiscent of the original FNaF games. Yes, you can move around in this memory and interact with items and doors and what you have in your area, but to its core, this is basically a sit and survive office with cameras gameplay. And for the memory, that is basically about Scott meeting his creations in a strange form. This is perfect. These gameplay mechanics together form a unique experience that yet again still makes you feel like you're playing a semi-free roam version of classic FNaF. Honestly, I'd go as far to say that the office memory in this game is what Security Breach needed more of, but that's a whole other topic. To be fair with this one is not as intense as the living room where there, you feel like every second you're gonna get fucked. Here, the only semi-similar circumstances where this memory shows some huge intensity is if you think you missed a Flash Freddy, you're going to Flash Freddy and think Foxy will show up at the last second, the fact that the locations of the 3 cupcakes for Chica do indeed change spots every time, and the fact that Foxy is able to appear in more than one camera. But that's all I can really think of. Also, Ignited Chica wiggling her way out of the wall is seriously a little goofy. But those are my only critiques with The Office, if I'm being for real. I'm still going to say that this memory is better than the living room because while not as intense, this is more engaging. However, just like the living room at 5 AM, a difficulty increase does happen, and the red and the eyes and the ambience, yep. And yet again, I really like it. The Office is a great memory. However, we get to my absolute favorite memory in this whole entire game. I love this memory or level or whatever you call it so damn much, and it's the peak of this game. Its horror, its gameplay, its animatronics, and even its story. We get a cutscene of Scott walking down to the basement thinking his family's down there, but he's greeted to a computer with weird images of demon eyes. Scott is beyond worried, terrified, and confused. He exclaims how he created Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy, and that this thing he's referring to is just using them, while demanding to know what this thing terrorizing him and his family is. Then, a certain character shows up behind him and knocks him unconscious.
What are you? Your creation.
Remember how back in the living room, it was suspicious that Michael knew Scott's name despite Scott not mentioning his own name when they first found Michael? And just the fact that he was found in Scott's house near sundown is just suspicious on its own. Yeah, it was Michael. This is the plot twist that basically confirms Michael is the bad guy of this game. He's the villain. And then we cut to the gameplay of the basement, where in this, we actually play as Michael, and the events of the basement are before the cutscene that just played. And this time, instead of the Ignited crew, we got the Fallen Endos. The basement is different from the other memories in this game, as this contains 5 individual phases. These phases focuses around Michael being given tasks to complete to escape the basement. What I love about this is that it gives you different gameplay experiences so it can make the horror more varied. Whether that be collecting items, putting in codes, dodging endos in a Weeping Angel's-esque way, walking down a creepy hallway, etc. All these together form a very unique experience that a lot of the players don't expect. It's twist after twist on what the gameplay offers, and it leaves a lot of room for the player to chew. Each section is terrifying in its own way. I also love the intensity with the one where you walk in a dark hallway, since when you get near to the end, it seems like you're genuinely gonna die until you actually make it. It puts you on the edge of your seat, demanding that you go faster. And my favorite section of them all is the final one that involves every fallen animatronic, utilizing every mechanic with these guys in the whole memory for a finale section. This one is my favorite because this one puts you on your toes. This one is extremely, extremely, extremely intense. It makes you think you can fuck up at any time. It is legitimately terrifying. It's scary, like holy shit. The ambience playing in the background makes it all so much better too. The basement memory is the culmination of why I love this game. It literally has everything. And finally, we have the attic. We have a cutscene where Scott is tied to a chair and Michael reveals that he's Mike Schmidt from the FNaF games, and we get to see creation.
Being Michael Schmidt has been an incredible experience. I mean, I feel fantastic. I want to keep feeling like this forever. And to do that, I need you to die.
Leave us alone!
In my opinion, the attic is the perfect climax for this game. This is where it all leads to. It is Scott in an extremely dangerous situation. Creation and the Fallen are after your fucking ass, and it is as tense as you think it is. You're constantly moving, you're constantly doing shit. This requires focus. As well, I love how this memory doesn't progress with time. It progresses with flashing ignited Golden Freddy in the cameras. That's unique. As well, when you're on the final Golden Freddy camera flashes, the attic starts to burn. The atmosphere becomes so chilling. In terms of what memory in this game brings the greatest stakes, it's the attic by far. And then, once you beat the memory, you're greeted to a cutscene where Scott is trying to escape the situation he's in, demanding Michael not to hurt his family. Then, Michael comes in and grabs him, which then he proceeds to literally kill Scott and take over his body. It cuts to the house burning down with Scott's family outside, and they're greeted by a Scott coffin that they aren't accustomed to. Michael succeeded all along. Damn. This ending gives me serious chills. It is a terrifying ending. The villain succeeded all along. I know it's cliche for a horror game ending to be the main character dying anyway, but I can forgive it here due to how scary this turned out in this game's execution of it. It is bone-chilling to this day, not only because of what happened to Scott, but literally the whole family. Their house is gone. The family is torn apart. This is sad, but that is literally perfect for this game. For a FNaF Fangame that is heavily horror-reliant, this twisted and messed up ending was the way to go. It's amazing storytelling. Before I conclude my review on this game, let me touch on the other aspects of this game worth mentioning. For one, the visuals are spectacular. This game is by far the best in the series when it comes to the visuals. The amount of brighting, detail, atmospheric aspects, it's all great. The color choices for certain parts are perfect, and they help seal the immersion of this game. As well, the character designs are amazing, and it's not just for this game. The whole series. The ignited animatronics are legitimately really cool. They're a more twisted version of the Wizards, and that's just great. I love the tears and details. They really do look ignited. The fallen Nendos are also very terrifying in design and creation. Creation is the best character design in this game in my opinion. He looks awesome. He's a beast. You don't fuck with Creation. They did a really good job at making this dude seem like a genuine threat. He's also a reason why the attic is the perfect climax for the game. He's a great final boss. As well, the soundtrack is so well composed. It was done by Nathan Hanover, and he did an excellent job. Every track in this game genuinely feels like music tracks for a professional horror game, and that's what really sells it. My favorite track of his is by far the credits music at the end. It captures the tone of what the player just saw happen to Scott during the final cutscene. Speaking of music and sounds, the sound design in this game in general is really good, especially when a character is moving in the ambience. Both of those and more sound effects help come up with a chilling atmosphere throughout the memories in this game. I also want to quickly talk about how good the voice acting is. I've seen it get criticized online for being unprofessional, but I don't see it. I think the voice actors all did a solid job with their voice performances, especially Scott's. You can feel Scott throughout the later memories and cutscenes in this game.
Why are you doing this to us? Why? Just leave us all alone, you monsters! I created you. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy. How is this happening? What are you?
The voiceovers from older Nick are also a highlight and help seal the deal on this past horror story vibe these voiceovers aim to.
My dad made a game series about it. A horror franchise, in fact. It was his shining achievement. Apparently there was a time when everybody knew about it, all over the world. Clothing, toys, accessories, board games, you name it.
Another thing this game does well at is after the main game's over, there's still stuff you can do. Take a look in the extras menu, and as you can see, there are challenges. Bedroom blind mode, which is basically the bedroom memory but you're blind, keying the blind mode from FNaF 4. You also got basement run mode, which is basically the basement memory, but you have to complete it in under 8 minutes. Which, knowing how tense this memory is, yeah. And there's the third challenge known as survival mode, which in this, you have to beat every memory without dying. These challenges are pretty good for players that want a bigger challenge than what they were given in the main game. There are also the newspapers in this game. After beating each memory, you have a newspaper on screen providing a bit of lore in the game. There's also secret newspapers that give some ominous hints to the game's story, which to get those, you must find ignited Golden Freddy in every memory. And for the basement, turn back in the hallway section when it says not to turn back, and for the attic, honk the Golden Freddy's plushie nose a certain amount of times. The more lore, the better, right? The Joy of Creation story mode is a fine example of when a game developer reaches their peak in their career. This game is without a doubt Nikson's currently most successful game or project he's ever put out. Story mode is by far the most popular game in the series, no contest. Sure, Reborn was a concept changer for the world of FNaF, but Nikson truly went all out on this game, and it really paid off. This game is now a part of the Fazbear Fanverse initiative. It has an anniversary behind the scenes and Q&A video due to its age and success, which by the way, this is a very good video for learning about the game's development process and story. And also, Ignited Freddy and Ignited Bonnie are literally referenced in Security Breach through arcade game machines. All of this was due to what Nikson did with developing this game in particular, and this is proof enough that the Joy of Creation story mode is the best game in the Joy of Creation series. The Joy of Creation Ignited Collection is the upcoming game that is getting released alongside the Fazbear Fanverse initiative. What this is going to be are remakes of the Joy of Creation Original, Reborn, and Story Mode, and it's most likely planned to be all in its own bundle upon release as its own game. Currently right now, what we know about this game is very scarce. What we have so far are these two images of Ignited Freddy and Ignited Chica for the collection. We also got these two early work in progress videos for the game, one is of Ignited Freddy's arm, and the other is of the house in the Ignited Freddy level of Reborn. However, it is confirmed by Nikson in the tweet attached to this. And here is a very basic level generation test I did where I defined a few room types and some corridors. This system will make it so that every time you play a Reborn level, you'll get a random layout. Basically, in short, in the remake for Reborn, the layout of the map is going to randomly change after starting a new attempt, which that's a really good idea in terms of making the game interesting to play. In terms of anything else, it's been confirmed that Nikson has had a contract with Glowstick Entertainment preventing him from working on the game, but as of right now, he's apparently allowed to get back into working on it. As well, it's also been confirmed that Nikson is building this from scratch. He is starting over. Personally, I think it's going to be very interesting to see play out. Personally, I'm hyped for the Ignited Collection. I'm in the hopes that these remakes help bring more to the table to these games and possibly be much better than them. For right now though, the Joy of Creation Ignited Collection is something worth being hyped over, and I hope it does not disappoint. The Joy of Creation series is quite honestly good, and in Story Mode's case, downright spectacular. Nikson knew what he was doing when developing his Fangame series. Even in his earliest and weakest work, you can tell that the harder he tried and the more time he spent into game development, the better he was going to get. And by God, it shows very well. Everything from the visuals to the gameplay to even the writing of the story improved as each game went on, and right now, the Joy of Creation is at a spot where it's heavily regarded as one of the most iconic FNaF Fangames in the community. Similar to a fangame like Five Nights at Candy's, there isn't a single Five Nights at Freddy's fan that has at least not heard of this game and or its characters. And once you've reached that status in fangame popularity, in my eyes, you're one of the greats. The Ignited animatronics are common names when it comes to fan-created characters. And as well, Nikson has become one of the most recognizable figures in this community. And due to that, Nikson has gone on to work on bigger projects such as with Glowstick Entertainment's Dark Deception, for example. The Fazbear Fanverse initiative treatment for this series, in my eyes, is well deserved. Quite simply, the Joy of Creation is a quality FNaF Fangame.
Mommy, Daddy's coming out of the house!
Honey?
Hell, I'm here!
Daddy!
Oh, hon, I was so worried.
It's okay, Val. It's okay. We're safe now. Have you called 911?
Yes, I did. As soon as we got out, I called them, like, a few hours ago. They said they'll be here as soon as they can. Oh, God, we stayed inside there for so long. I thought you...
But I didn't. Don't worry. Everybody is fine.
Daddy, what happened to home? Why is it burning? Is Michael still in there?
We are safe. Murders. You're safe.
Dad?
Everything's gone.
You're safe. That's all that matters.
Dad, you're acting weird.
You are safe now. That's all that matters.
Honey, are you okay?
You are safe. That's all that matters.
Daddy, no!
You are
Oh my
safe.
God, oh my God.
That's all that matters. You are safe. That's all that matters. You are safe. That's all that matters. You are safe now. That's all that matters. See, they're safe now, just as you wanted. Thank you for your cooperation, Scott Coughlin. I'll take care of everything from here.